All right, good people. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Pray all is well with you. Ekojo Ose. I greet you on the day of Orisa. I pray that Baba Rubo has blessed each and every one of you with acceptance this morning and has enhanced your creativity radically. Ashe. This is our third installment of the Self-Mastery Challenge. A little bit early, just a couple of minutes, and we're going to give the folks the opportunity to join us because you know how live works. You get the indication that it's happening, and then we'll let folks file in. So I'm just a couple of seconds early. So welcome, welcome, welcome. We have an excellent class in store for the good people today. I hope you've enjoyed our previous sessions. If you have, let me know. Give me a thumbs up. If you haven't, you can scroll back on the timeline and enjoy what is there while it's there. But I'm excited about what we're going to do today, and I'm hopeful and I'm confident that what we do will also be meaningful for our community. Ashe. Today is Tuesday. It's the day of victory. So I pray that it's a day of conquest for you. Most importantly, overcoming your own internal limitations, overcoming your own self limitations and perceptions that keep you locked into a pattern that no longer serves you. I pray that you can overcome yourself, because once we conquer the enemy within, the enemy without is pretty rendered neutral. So today we pray for your victory over self. It is 12:30, so let's dive in and make this conversation what we need it to be. As you know, this is the Self-Mastery Challenge. This is our third installment, as I mentioned before. In our first conversation, we talked about destiny and the definition of destiny as a composite. Part of it you inherit from your mother's side, part of it you inherit from your father's side, part of it you choose for yourself, and part of it is given to you by the divinities. So that's essential for us to really understand what the driving force of our tradition is all about. Is destiny, but we got to define destiny in order for us to really work with it. In the second conversation, we talked about the Odu Ifa and the system of Odu, between Odu, sacrifice, and observances and medicines, how those work together to heal our destiny based on what we know what destiny is. And today we're going to talk about the ways in which you can use the Odu Ifa to rewrite your destiny. How Odu Ifa helps you rewrite your destiny, right? And all of this is framed up as a treatment plan, right? Which is a little bit different from just getting knowledge and information. I intend for this to be framing up a treatment plan for you. And a treatment plan is distinguished by your participation. When you go to the doctor, they give you a treatment plan with the expectation that if you adhere to the instructions given, then you will recover. And what are we recovering from? Well, you know, every individual is balancing out their life and their destiny according to the cards that they were dealt in the prenatal state, what they chose, who their parents were, etc. And so that's individual and as unique as our fingerprint. But we as African people are all recovering from one overriding ailment, one sickness. There's one circumstance that has touched all of our lives. If you're from the continent, if you're from the Caribbean, if you're from Europe, if you're from South America, if you're from North America, and you are of African descent, there's one thing that you have not been able to escape for the last 500 years, and that is colonization, right? And Colonization is a far-reaching system. But the aspect of colonization that I'm most concerned with right now is the aspect of colonization that has an adverse effect on your identity, on your self-image, on your self-concept. And so for that, I use the analogy of the ugly duckling. So if you were part of the other conversations, you remember we talking about the ugly duckling. What's the ugly duckling all about? The ugly duckling is actually a swan whose egg was put into the nest with ducks. And so the ugly duckling comes out, it hatches, and the feet are too big, the neck is too long, the feathers are too, scraggly. All these things, the beak is the wrong color, like all of these different features of this swan are just atrocious to the ducks. And so the swan has internalized this idea that I'm ugly and everything about me is wrong. Until the swan runs into another swan. And the other swan says, what are you doing with the ducks? Why are you trying to do duck things? You are a swan. So it's one thing for someone to tell you, hey, you're a swan, you're not a duck. It's something else for someone to invite you in to hang out with swans and do swan things. And then it's another thing altogether for somebody to help you to be the very best swan that you can be. Right? And that's what the self-mastery challenge is all about. How can you be the best African that you can be? How can we restore your African mind so that you can show up in the world and use your natural gifts and talents, your African genius, to solve your problems, and in solving your problems, you help solve other Africans' problems. Right? Because we are suffering from one common ailment. We can trace all these things back to one root. If you look at our health, the disproportionate problems we have with health, you can trace them back to colonization and the system of white supremacism. If you look at our legal problems, you can trace them back to one system. They have one root cause. You can look at our economic problems. You can look at our political problems. You can look at our spiritual problems, our educational problems. You can just go out and span the whole panorama of problems that people of African descent suffer from disproportionately, and they come back to one root cause. And that ability to name that cause is not a cop-out. It's not now an excuse for us to say, well, the white man did it to me, so I'm just screwed, so there's nothing for me to do. No, once you name the ailment, now we can implement the treatment plan. Now you can go into action. You can point and focus on something, right? So this is the prerogative of the Babalawo, of the Orisa devotee, because we are the ones who have taken on the responsibility to care for the well-being of our people. We are the ones who are the custodians of our original identity. We are the ones who know that we're swans and not ducks. Because you can get your identity through science. Sure, they can tell you you're a bunch of molecules and bacteria and synapses and all that kind of stuff. Sure, that's great. But that's what science says you are. You can look at the political, legal definition of who you are. Your passport comes from this country. Your identification comes from this state. Sure, that's great. That's how they tell you who you are legally. And there are all these other ways that you can define yourself. But the true definition of who you are comes from African indigenous knowledge systems. You got to go to the thing that told you who you were before there was any science, before there was any politics, before there were laws and countries. Who were you and how did you know who you are? You had your own indigenous knowledge systems, and that's what we're referencing when we go to Ifa to ask how to rewrite our destiny. I know I'm not a duck, I'm a swan, but how can I be the very best swan? Ifa is the one that can help us rewrite our destiny because we have some duck habits. We have some duck self-perceptions. Ifa is going to help us get clear and have the proper filter for who we are, where we're coming from, and why we're here. So, how does Ifa do that? It starts with the context. And the context of Ifa gives us an understand the context of Odu Ifa, the structure of Odu Ifa gives us an understanding of the bigger theology and the law of our tradition as a whole. Okay? What do I mean? When you look at the structure of Ifa, you can go through any verse, right? Anger amounts to nothing. Patience is the father of character. The elder who has patience has all good things. This was the one who cast Ifa for Orunmila. When right? A well-germinated palm seed cannot easily be mishandled. This was the one who cast Ifa for Orunmila. When blah, 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 blah. Right? Itaruku lawo, itaruku, itaruku lawo, itaruku, tataruku, tatata, adifafun ba, abufun, right? Afun. All of these difafun, everything that has to do with the concept or the process of casting and divination is going to be built into every single verse of Ifa. Go ask your Babalawo to chant 3 verses, 10 verses, 100 verses. Go to a place where there's hundreds of Babalawos chanting thousands of verses of Ifa. And they're all going to follow this same structure. And this structure is integral for our ability to understand how Odu Ifa rewrites our destiny. Why? Because that structure tells us one Babalawo cast Ifa for another individual or an entity or a group of people. What you got to know about that, the value of that, is that the Babalawo never get on horses and ride into a village and destroy all the Shango shrines and force all the Ogun people to worship Ifa. That never happens. The Babalawos never get on boats and sail across the ocean and dismantle belief systems and dismantle economic systems and force people to worship Ifa. That never happens. That never happens. That never happens. But what does happen every single time? If you look at all the millions of verses of Ifa, what's happening? What is Ifa telling us? What is Ifa demonstrating for us? That people voluntarily come to consult Ifa. Everybody comes to Ifa voluntarily. I have a problem. I have a dilemma. I have an opportunity. Ifa, I'm coming to you by my own free will to ask you, what can I do to minimize threats and optimize resources? So that ties into the will. Choice. Choice is a function of the will. And our tradition is based all entirely on your ability to choose. Which is why we start the conversation with your Ori, with your destiny. Because even your destiny is a choice. Coming from the heavenly realm to the earthly realm is a choice. And so it reminds me of being a drummer. My first teacher was a drummer, so I got to hang out with drummers. And I remember one time hanging out with the drummers and them, they use these complex syncopated rhythms. And at one point, one of the drummers, I was trying to keep up, right? So you know what I'm saying? You doing a downbeat. And after the fact, in between, one of the drummers was like, yeah, that's considered a little bit rude. That's a little bit offensive, was the words he used. It's offensive. Amongst drummers, we don't play the downbeat. We feel the downbeat. We know where the beat is, and we don't play the beat. That's a demonstration of our expertise and our mastery. We play around the beat. We play everything but the beat to accentuate where the beat should be. And that is a part of African spirituality, particularly Yoruba spirituality. There's a subtle aspect of it that's unspoken. It's just understood. Which is why the Yoruba say, for someone who is omoluabi, you only need to recite 1/2 of a proverb. That in itself is a proverb. Someone who knows will say the other half of it, which is because the other half of the proverb will flourish from within. So our tradition is also based on subtlety and your ability to sense, to feel, to detect. one of the organizing principles of our tradition is not spoken of, but it's extremely important. That's what I'm trying to articulate to you. That is the will. We don't talk about the will, but the will is the driving force of our tradition. Ifa presents opportunities for you to exercise your will. You start exercising your will by consulting Ifa. That's the first step. That's the first assumption that Ifa makes. This person has activated their will. They're coming to me voluntarily to solve a problem, to seek wisdom, to improve their lives. Good. We're on the same page. That's number one. Based upon that understanding, the Odu Ifa help us to rewrite our destiny by creating a variety of opportunities for us to act and continue to exercise and strengthen our will. The first opportunity to act comes with the sacrifice. I've told you who you are. I've told you where you are. I've told you what you're going to have to go through to get from where you are to where you want to be. Now, in order to activate this, you must make a sacrifice. That will be the next part of the structure of the Odu, of the verse. This person was told this, they were told that, and they were asked to sacrifice. If they sacrifice, we can anticipate a certain outcome. If they refuse to sacrifice, we can expect another kind of outcome. Generally speaking, people who sacrifice are blessed. They get benefits. The people who refuse to sacrifice do not get the benefits. And as much as it is about the actual sacrifice, it's also a reflection of the value that we place on the will. Are you willing to do the work? Are you willing to make the offering? Are you willing to go and get the ingredients? Are you willing to bring them to the Babalawo? Just making the sacrifice is an expression and a demonstration of your will. Now, nowadays, it's a little bit different because people are working from remote. They don't necessarily go and get all the ingredients. But back in the day, back even when I started working, all of my clients were in person. So when I told them to make a sacrifice, they had to go and get the ingredients and bring them to my house for us to perform the sacrifice. And all of the things that they experienced along the way was a part of the sacrifice. And everything they experienced along the way required them to make more and more and more choices. And every single choice that they make is reinforcing their will. Do you want it? Is it important? Are you going to do it? The will must be engaged as you make your sacrifice. That's number 2. Number 3, Ifa then creates opportunities for you to create change. The change comes through the observances. Most people refer to the observances as taboo. Ewo. Ewo is taboo. But I can't accept it as taboo. Because taboo speaks to things that you don't do exclusively. Don't eat certain foods. Don't wear certain colors. Don't go to certain places. But that's only half of what Ifa tells you. There are other instances where Ifa will tell you, wear all white. First thing in the morning, put your head down and give thanks and praise to your benefactor. When you meet a situation where there's a conflict, don't speak out. In other instances, there's something going on, don't remain silent. Don't do this and do that. We can just go on and on about the balance of the observances, which is why I use the term observances. There are times you do things and there are times that you don't do things. And interestingly enough, today, we got the most wonderful example of the importance of the observances. And I want to tell you this story. But before I do, I want you to understand another concept. In a textbook fashion, most people will tell you that Odu will help rewrite your destiny because you get initiated to Ifa, you learn your Odu, you make your sacrifice, you know your taboos. That's a standard textbook common explanation of how Odu rewrites destiny. And it's true. It's true. But it only scratches the surface. That's just the beginning of what's going on. And it's also a little bit misleading. It distorts the truth. It distorts the reality. Why do I say that? Because it's one thing to be initiated, but it's something else to be transformed. An initiation and a transformation are radically different. They could be totally independent of one another, as a matter of fact. You could be transformed without being initiated, and you can be initiated without being transformed. They are as different from one another as a marriage is different from a wedding. A marriage is entirely different from a wedding. You can have a successful marriage without having a wedding. And you can have a wedding and not ever enjoy a successful marriage. They are mutually exclusive. They can go together, but they don't necessarily go together. Right? How does your transformation take place? How does Odu Ifa help you rewrite your destiny? The observances are one of the most important elements. The observances are what make the marriage. The observances are what facilitate the transformation. The Yoruba will tell us the wisdom it takes to build a house is small in comparison to the wisdom it takes to live in the house. One is focused on events. The other is focused on processes. The process is what transforms you. The process that Odu Ifa exposed you to is brought to the apex through the observances. Transformation is brought to the highest frequency through the observances. Case in point, Ifa tells us of a time when a man was suffering from an ailment, an unknown ailment, unnamed ailment. No one could heal him. He went to all the herbalists. He went to the doctors. Nothing changed his situation. He went to consult Ifa, finally with the Babalawo. They cast Ifa for him. The Odu revealed itself. Otuafun is the Odu in question. They said, make your sacrifice with one he-goat. He made the sacrifice with the one he-goat. Days go by. Weeks go by. No results. No improvement. The ailment continues. He repeats it a second and a third time. Each time, no improvement. The ailment continued. Finally, he went back to consult Ifa again. They cast Ifa. This time, the Babalawo saw Otuafun for the fourth time. He says, tell me what's going on. He says, listen, I've come here I've gone to different Babalawos to consult Ifa and solve my problem, but it always has come the same. It's Otuafun. They tell me to make a sacrifice. It's one he-goat. It's two he-goats. It's three he-goats. But my situation isn't improving. Ah, said the Babalawo. Tell me again in detail. You made the sacrifice, and then what happened? I made the sacrifice, and then the Babalawos, they prepared it all. They got together, and they ate it. He said, that's your problem. That's your problem. This time, we're going to go back to the original. The sacrifice is one he-goat. However, once you have eaten this he-goat, you will not eat it. The Babalawos who prepared the sacrifice for you will not eat it. Instead, you will take this goat, you will prepare it, you will give some morsels to Ifa. You will give some morsels to your brother and his family. You will give some to your neighbor's family. You will give some to the people here. You're going to parse this goat out as much as you can, and you're going to let people eat of this goat that you've prepared. The man made the sacrifice. He prepared the goat, and he started to dole it out. And what happened? He gave some to the neighbor, and the neighbor said, it shall be well with you. He felt better. He gave some to his in-laws, and they prayed for him. They said that your condition will steadily improve. And he felt better. And he gave some to this person, and they prayed that your Ori will elevate you beyond any ailments. Every person he gave the food to, they all prayed for him and they blessed him. And what do you think happened? The ailment ceased. It's because of the observance that he kept. What does the observance represent? The observance represents you doing what is necessary for the circumstance at hand. The observance allows you to show up in the world in a certain way. Perhaps the people around him were hungry. Perhaps the people around him knew that he was ailing. They knew the solution to his problem, but none of them offered any solution because he wasn't showing up in the community the way he needed to show up. We don't know the specifics, but for whatever reason, him being able to feed the people is what elicited prayer and blessings from his environment. So when you do things that solve problems, when you are asked to perform certain duties, if I ask you to show up and do certain things and not do certain things, you are providing balance for the environment in which you find yourself. As you provide balance for the environment in which you find yourself, then you also create a need for other people. You are satisfying other people's needs. You are helping other people solve their problems. You are allowing other people to show up the way that they need to show up. And as that happens, gradually, not only are you changed, but the people in your environment are also changed. This is how we create gradual but far-reaching change in our lives and in the lives of the people who we're destined to serve. Ifa, when we look at Ifa as the thing that will help us fulfill our destiny, it's not enough to say, cast Ifa and make your sacrifice and your destiny will be satisfied. That is just like me saying to you, let's eliminate white supremacism. Let's eradicate poverty. Let's stop climate change. Let's save the whales. Those are good ideas. And most people would agree with them. They like them. But what am I supposed to do from where I am, right here, right now? How can I respond? How can I act on such a big and abstract concept? That big task needs to be broken down to smaller and smaller and smaller parts. And those smaller parts are naturally going to match the environment and the situation that you face right now. The little things that you do consistently that have a big impact on your destiny. That is the power of the observance. Small actions that have a big impact on your destiny. Because that's what Ifa is talking about. You might think you got a problem with your wife. You might think you got money problems. You might be dealing with it because you think you got, health problems. And you do. But the reason why you have those problems is related to your destiny. Ifa is speaking to your circumstance relative to your destiny, not relative to the little thing that you want. You just want a bigger flat screen TV. You want the new gadget. You want the new whatchamacallit. But that is not what you have come here to do. You have come here to fulfill your destiny. So Ifa is giving you these small actions in the form of observances that will help you create a big impact on your destiny in the long run. So little by little, step by step, Ifa creates opportunities for you to act, for you to choose, for you to exercise your will, for you to solve your problem and solve the problems of others, to create a need and a desire for other people to have your presence and your contribution in their lives because you are helping them to improve. You acting in alignment with who you are now sets the stage for other people to do the same. And that is how Odu helps us to rewrite our destinies, both as individuals and as groups. So this is our third installment of the Self-Mastery Challenge. Remember, this is a treatment plan, and this is a challenge to all Africans to restore your African mind. I want to encourage you to start to incorporate this information and these teachings into your life. So the next time you go for an Ifa consultation, bring these ideas into action. Activate these ideas with decision making. Make them real through your choices, little by little, day by day. And see over time how Ifa enables you to live the medicine that heals your life and heal the lives of those who you're destined to serve. I invite you to join us in the Orisa Lifestyle Academy in the School of Orisha Studies by visiting obafemio.com or orishalifestyle.com. Get the books, subscribe to my social media, enroll in the classes, and put it to the test. That's the best part for me. That's what I really like. Put what I'm saying to the test. Join us. Let's get busy, and let's work together to help bring about the good condition. I look forward to working with you all. Bye for now. Odabo.